Captain Vextar stared at the strange signals dancing across his ship's main screen. The Zalani exploration vessel Starwind had been mapping the outer rim systems for 3 months, finding nothing but empty space and dead rocks. This was different. Science. "Officer Kirilon, what am I looking at?" Vextar asked, his blue-scaled fingers drumming against his command chair. Kirilon checked her readings twice before answering. "Captain, it's a distress beacon. Very old. The signal pattern matches human technology from their expansion era." "Humans?" Vextar's eye stalks twitched with surprise. "Out here? That's impossible. This system isn't on any galactic charts." "The signal is broadcasting on ancient emergency frequencies," Kirilon continued. "According to my database, it matches the signature of a ship called the New Horizon, a civilian transport that disappeared over 200 years ago during the Great Expansion." Vexatar had heard stories about those early human colony ships. Thousands of brave families packed into metal tubes, shooting themselves into the dark, hoping to find new homes. Most never made it. Space was cruel to the unprepared. "Plot. A course to the signal source," he ordered. "If there are survivors, galactic law requires us to help them." The Starwind changed direction, its engines humming through the ship's corridors. The crew worked quietly, but Vextar could feel their excitement. A lost colony was big news, the big kind of discovery that made careers. 3 days later, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel near a small yellow star. The system had 5 planets, and the signals came from the third one. It was blue and green, covered in clouds and oceans. Perfect for human life. "Captain," called Navigator Morkef from his station. "You need to see this." Vextar moved to the navigation console. "What is it?" "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. Look at these readings." The screen showed energy outputs that made Vextar's breath catch. Cities glowed like stars across the night side of the planet. Power grids stretched between continents. Orbital platforms hung in space like metal moons. "This can't be right," Vextar whispered. "Run the scans again." Kirilon worked frantically at her station. "Captain, the readings are correct. I'm detecting fusion reactors, manufacturing centers, and what looks like a space elevator. The energy output rivals our homeworlds." Vextar felt his world spinning. Lost colonies were supposed to be struggling groups of survivors. They should be farming with hand tools and praying for rescue. They weren't supposed to build civilizations that outshone the galactic core. "Are we sure these are humans?" he asked. "DNA scans confirm it," Kirilon replied. "Human genetic markers everywhere. But, Captain, there's something else. I'm detecting technology I don't recognize. The power signatures are unlike anything in our databases." Communications Officer Veltar looked up from his console. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the planet. Put it on speakers." A clear human voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect galactic standard. "Unknown vessel, this is New Eden Traffic Control. Please identify yourself and state your purpose in our system." The aliens looked at each other in shock. Traffic control? Lost colonies didn't have traffic control. Vextar cleared his throat. "This is Captain Vextar of the Zalani exploration vessel Starwind. We received your distress beacon and came to offer assistance." A pause, then laughter. "Our distress beacon? Captain, that old thing has been broadcasting for over 2 centuries. We keep meaning to turn it off, but it's become something of a tradition. Welcome to New Eden. Would you like to visit our world?" Vextar's mind raced. A tradition they kept. An ancient distress beacon running as a tradition? What kind of lost colony had traditions about keeping old equipment running? We would be honored to visit, he managed to say. Excellent. Please follow the guidance beacons to landing platform 7. Governor Martinez is looking forward to meeting you. The connection ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Landing. Platform 7? How many landing platforms did they have? As the star wind followed the guidance beacons toward the planet, Vextar watched the surface grow larger on his screens. Cities stretched across entire continents. Rivers had been redirected into perfect geometric patterns. Forests grew in careful designs between gleaming towers. Captain, Kirillon said quietly, I'm reading their atmosphere. It's been modified. The oxygen levels are perfect for human life, but they've added trace elements that should improve health and longevity. They've terraformed their own planet. How is that possible? Vextar asked. Terraforming takes thousands of years and resources of entire civilizations. I don't know, Kirillon admitted, but they've done it in just 2 centuries. The landing platform appeared below them. A massive structure of metal and crystal that could easily hold a dozen ships the size of the Star Wind. Other vessels sat on nearby platforms, designs that Vextar had never seen before. They looked human, but advanced beyond anything in the galactic databases. As they landed, Vextar saw people waiting for them, humans dressed in simple but elegant clothes. They looked healthy and confident, standing straight and tall. No signs of hardship or struggle. No indication they had spent generations fighting for survival. Prepare the diplomatic protocols, Vextar ordered, and send an immediate message to the Galactic Council. They need to know about this. What should I tell them? Veltar asked. Vextar looked at the thriving civilization spread out below him. Tell them we found the lost colony. Tell them they're not lost anymore. And tell them... He paused, trying to find words for what he was seeing. Tell them everything we know about human capabilities might be wrong. The airlock hissed open, and Vextar stepped out onto the platform. The air was clean and fresh, filled with the scent of growing things. In the distance, towers reached toward the sky like fingers of crystal and metal. Vehicles moved silently. Through the air between buildings, a human man approached, wearing clothes that looked simple but were clearly made from advanced materials. He was tall and confident, with gray hair and kind eyes. Behind him stood other humans, all looking healthy and prosperous. Captain Vexistar, the man said with a warm smile. Welcome to New Eden. I'm Governor Jake Martinez. We've been waiting a long time to meet our galactic neighbors. Vextar stared at the governor, then at the impossible city around him. Everything he thought he knew about lost colonies, about human limitations, about the natural order of galactic civilization, crumbled in that moment. Governor Martinez, he said carefully, we have much to discuss. The emergency meeting aboard the Starwind felt tense and strange. Captain Vextar had called for immediate backup, and now 3 more ships hung in orbit around New Eden. The Thraxian heavy cruiser Iron Claw looked like a floating weapon next, to the elegant Kolari diplomatic vessel Peaceful Dawn. Together, they represented the 3 major powers of the galaxy. Ambassador Yelnas of the Kolari paced the conference room, her silver skin shimmering with worry. This changes everything. Captain, a human colony with this level of technology cannot be ignored. General Crexmore of the Thraxians slammed his massive fist on the table. Technology means weapons. We must know if they pose a threat to galactic security. Vextar looked at the orbital scans spread across the holographic display. Every hour revealed more impossible things. Cities that cleaned themselves. Factories that produced no waste. Transportation systems that moved millions of people without any visible energy source. According to galactic law, Yelnus continued, we must follow standard first contact protocols, assessment, classification, and integration assistance. Integration? Crexmore laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. Look at these readings. Their cities produce more energy than some star systems. What are we supposed to integrate them into? Dr. Quilon, the Kolari science advisor, studied the data with growing amazement. Their technology appears to be at least 50 years ahead of galactic standard. In some areas, perhaps more. That's impossible, Crexmore growled. They've been isolated for 2 centuries, cut off from galactic knowledge and resources. They should be barely surviving. Vextar remembered Governor Martinez's confident smile. I don't think they've been barely surviving, General. The door chimed, and Communications Officer Veltar entered. Sirs, we're receiving another transmission from the planet. Put it through, Yelnus ordered. The same warm human voice filled the room. Galactic representatives, this is Governor Martinez. We understand you're probably having meetings about us right now. We'd like to invite your diplomatic teams to visit our world. We have much to show you. Yelnus stepped forward. Governor Martinez, this is Ambassador Yelnus of the Galactic Council. We appreciate your invitation. However, standard protocol requires assessment before formal contact. Ambassador, we've been monitoring galactic communications for 60 years. We know your protocols. We're ready when you are. The transmission ended, leaving the aliens staring at each other in shock. They've been monitoring us? Crexmore demanded. For 60 years? Dr. Quilon checked his instruments. I'm not detecting any surveillance equipment in this system. Maybe their equipment is better than ours, Vextar suggested quietly. The thought hung in the air like a threat. Throughout galactic history, the 3 major species had shared technology and knowledge. Progress came slowly, carefully, with each advance tested and approved by council committees. The idea that isolated humans might have surpassed them was terrifying. We proceed with standard protocol, Yelnus decided. Full diplomatic team, armed escort, complete documentation. If these humans have advanced technology, the galaxy needs to know about it. 6 hours later, 3 shuttles descended toward New Eden. Each carried representatives from the major species, along with scientists, military advisors, and cultural experts. Vextar commanded the lead shuttle with Ambassador Yelnus and General Crexmore beside him. As they approached the landing platform, Vextar marveled at the city below. Every building seemed to serve multiple purposes. Parks and gardens covered rooftops and walls. Transportation tubes carried people through transparent tunnels that doubled as works of art. Their architecture makes no sense, muttered Dr. Quilon. Those buildings should collapse under their own weight. Maybe they understand physics differently than we do, Vextar replied. The shuttles landed on a platform that could have held a small city. Hundreds of humans waited to greet them, all looking healthy and happy. They wore clothes that seemed simple but moved like liquid in the breeze. Children played nearby, laughing and running between their parents. Governor Martinez approached, with a delegation of humans. Beside him walked a tall woman with dark hair and confident eyes, and a younger man who carried himself like a soldier. Welcome to New Eden, Governor Martinez said, as the aliens emerged from their shuttles. "I'm Jake Martinez, elected governor of our world. This is Chief Engineer Lisa Burke and Defense Coordinator Ryan Clark." Ambassador Yelnas stepped forward, following diplomatic protocol. "Governor Martinez, I am Ambassador Yelnas, representing the Galactic Council. We come in peace to assess your situation and offer assistance." Governor Martinez smiled. "Assistance? That's very kind. We're always happy to learn new things. But first, would you like to see what we've built here?" General Crexmore stepped forward, his massive frame towering over the humans. "Governor, our scans indicate you possess advanced technology. We must understand your capabilities for galactic security purposes." Ryan Clark, the defense coordinator, looked up at the giant Thraxian without fear. "General, we understand your concerns. We'd be happy to discuss our defenses after the tour." The casual confidence in the human's voice made Crexmore's eye stalks twitch. Lost colonists weren't supposed to speak to Thraxian generals like equals. Dr. Quilon pulled out his scanning equipment. "Governor, if we could begin with basic assessments of your technology level." Lisa Burke, the chief engineer, smiled. "Doctor, your scanners are based on quantum resonance principles, correct? We tried that approach about 50 years ago. Found some interesting alternatives. Would you like to see them?" Dr. Quilon stared at his equipment, then at the human. "You've improved on quantum resonance?" "Improved, replaced, and moved beyond it," Lisa replied cheerfully. "Come on, let's show you around. I think you'll find it interesting." As the group began walking toward the city, Vextar noticed something that made his scales prickle. The humans weren't acting like rescued colonists grateful for contact with civilization. They were acting like hosts, welcoming guests to their home. Behind them, more shuttles were landing. Scientists, cultural experts, and military advisors from 3 species, all coming to study a lost human colony. But as Vextar looked around at the impossible city, the confident humans, and the technology that shouldn't exist, he began to wonder who would be studying whom. "Governor," he asked quietly, "how long have you been expecting us?" Governor Martinez glanced back with twinkling eyes. "Captain, we've been ready for this day since our grandparents first looked up at the stars and wondered when our neighbors would come calling." The tour began at what Governor Martinez called the Central Plaza, a vast open space surrounded by buildings that seemed to grow from the ground like crystal trees. Ambassador Yelnas tried to maintain diplomatic composure, but her silver skin kept changing colors as she struggled to process what she was seeing. "The buildings," Dr. Quilon whispered to Captain Vextar. "They're alive." Vextar looked closer. The walls pulsed gently, like breathing. Windows opened and closed as people approached. Gardens grew along the sides, their roots somehow integrated into the structure itself. "Not alive exactly," Lisa Burke said, overhearing them. "Bio-integrated. We learned to work with living systems instead of against them. Much more efficient." General Crexmore pointed his scanner at a nearby building. "My readings show organic and inorganic materials fused at the molecular level. This shouldn't be possible." "Why not?" asked Ryan Clark with genuine curiosity. "Nature's been doing it for billions of years. We just learned to copy." They walked along paths that felt warm under their feet. The ground itself seemed to provide gentle heating. Children played in parks where the trees grew in perfect spirals, their branches forming natural climbing structures and slides. "How do you power all this?" Ambassador Yelnas asked. Lisa Burke gestured toward elegant towers that rose from various points in the city. fusion plants, solar collectors, geothermal taps, and wind harvesters. But the real trick is efficiency. Our buildings use about 90% less energy than standard galactic designs. 90%? Dr. Quilon's scientific mind reeled. That's impossible. Thermodynamics has limits. Only if you think in straight lines, Lisa replied with a smile. We learn to think in circles. Everything feeds everything else. They passed a manufacturing center where humans worked alongside, machines that moved like dancers. The factories produced no smoke, no waste, no noise. Materials flowed in perfect cycles, with every byproduct becoming input for something else. Your manufacturing principles, Vextar observed, they're unlike anything in galactic databases. We had to start from scratch, Governor Martinez explained. No trade routes, no resource imports, no backup systems. Everything had to work the first time, every time. Failure meant death. The truth of that statement hung heavy in the air. These humans hadn't had the luxury of gradual development. They'd been forced to innovate or die, alone in the dark between the stars. They visited a school where children learned by playing with devices that responded to their thoughts. The aliens watched human youngsters manipulate complex mathematical concepts by moving colored lights through the air. Neural interface technology, Ryan Clark explained. We developed it to help our first generation survive. When you're building a world from nothing, you need to learn fast. Children are using neural interfaces? Ambassador Yelnas asked in shock. The galactic safety protocols prohibit such technology for developing minds. Our protocols are different, Ryan replied calmly. We tested everything carefully. These children will grow up thinking in ways we never could. At the medical center, they met Dr. Sam Rogers, an elderly man whose eyes sparkled with intelligence. He showed them healing chambers that used light and sound to repair injuries in minutes instead of weeks. Fascinating, Dr. Quilon murmured, studying the equipment. You're using frequencies we consider dangerous. Dangerous if you don't understand them, Dr. Rogers agreed. We spent 40 years learning to use them safely. Trial and error teaches hard lessons. They climbed to the top of the central spire, where an observation deck offered views of the entire continent. Cities dotted the landscape like jewels, connected by transportation tubes that carried people and goods at incredible speeds. Population? Ambassador Yelnas asked. About 12 million on this continent, Governor Martinez replied. 43 million worldwide. 43 million? General Crexmore's voice cracked. The original colony ship carried 12,000 people. We've been here for 200 years, Lisa Burke said, and we learned to take very good care of ourselves. The aliens studied the medical scanners that Dr. Rogers had given them. The readings showed human lifespans averaging 150 years, with disease rates near zero and genetic defects corrected before birth. Your medical technology, Dr. Quilon said slowly, is beyond anything the galaxy possesses. We couldn't afford sick people, Dr. Rogers explained. Every person was precious. We had to learn to fix everything. As the day continued, the tour revealed wonder after wonder. Computers that learned and adapted like living minds. Transportation systems that moved without visible power sources. Communication networks that connected every human on the planet. In real time? How do you govern 43 million people? Ambassador Yelnas asked during lunch in a restaurant where food grew fresh in vertical gardens. Carefully, Governor Martinez replied with a smile. We vote on everything important. Every person gets heard. Direct democracy on this scale is impossible, Yelnats protested. The complexity alone. Not with our systems, Ryan Clark said. Our computers help everyone stay informed. Decisions happen fast when everyone has the same information. Your computers, General Crexmore said suspiciously. Show me their capabilities. Lisa Burke led them to a computing center where streams of light flowed through crystalline structures. The alien scanners went wild, detecting processing power that dwarfed their ship computers. Quantum biological processors, Lisa explained. They think instead of just calculating. Think? Vextar asked. Not like us, Lisa assured him. But they understand context, make intuitive leaps, see patterns we might miss. Very useful for running a civilization. As evening approached, they stood on a terrace overlooking the city. Lights began to glow softly from buildings and pathways. The illumination seemed to come from the structures themselves, not from external sources. Bioluminescent integration, Lisa explained before anyone could ask. The buildings light themselves. Ambassador Yelnats felt overwhelmed. Everything she'd seen challenged basic assumptions about technology, society, and human capabilities. Governor Martinez, I must ask directly, how did isolated colonists achieve all this? Governor Martinez looked out over his thriving city. Ambassador, when you're truly alone, you learn to use everything. Every scrap of knowledge, every wild idea, every impossible dream. We couldn't afford to say something was too hard or too dangerous. We had to try everything. And when things failed? General, Crexmore asked. We learned from the failures and tried again, Ryan Clark answered. Failure was education, not defeat. Dr. Rogers joined them on the terrace. We also learned something the galaxy seems to have forgotten. What's that? Dr. Quilon asked. That different minds working together can solve any problem. We never said, that's not my field, or that's impossible. We said, let's figure it out together. As night fell completely, the aliens realized they were looking at a civilization that shouldn't exist. Humans who had not just survived isolation, but used it to become something unprecedented. Governor, Vextar said quietly, tomorrow we'll have many more questions. Governor Martinez nodded. Captain, we've been waiting 2 centuries to share what we've learned. Ask anything you want. The confidence in his voice was absolute, and the aliens began to understand that their assumptions about human limitations might have been completely wrong. The second day began with Dr. Sam Rogers leading the alien delegation through the Advanced Research Center. The building itself defied logic, with walls that seemed to shift and change as they walked through corridors that felt larger inside than outside. Spatial compression technology, Dr. Rogers explained casually. We needed more space but didn't want to expand outward, so we learned to fold space inward. Dr. Quilon's scanner started making distressed noises. Dr. Rogers, my instruments can't measure the interior dimensions of this building. That's because they're trying to measure 3-dimensional space with 3-dimensional thinking, replied Dr. Rogers with a gentle smile. We learned to think in more dimensions. They entered a laboratory where human scientists worked with energy fields that danced through the air like living things. Particles of light moved in patterns that formed complex equations before dissolving and reforming into new shapes. What are they doing? Ambassador Yelnats asked, her silver skin shifting through colors of confusion. Solving problems, said Dr. Helen Murphy, a young scientist with paint-stained fingers. We're working on a new propulsion system. The math is easier to see when you can touch it. General Krexamore stepped closer to examine the floating equations. This is beyond theoretical physics. How do you manipulate pure energy? Practice, Dr. Murphy replied. And about 60 years of trial and error. We lost 3 buildings before we figured out the safety protocols. In the next room, they found engineers building machines that assembled themselves. Metals flowed like water, forming complex devices that began working the moment they solidified. Self-organizing matter, explained Chief Engineer Lisa Burke. We taught materials to know what they're supposed to become. You taught materials? Vexitar asked in amazement. Information storage at the atomic level, Lisa said. Every piece contains instructions for the whole, like DNA, but for machines. They visited the power generation facility, where fusion reactors, no larger than dinner tables, produced enough energy for entire city districts. The reactors had no external cooling systems, no massive containment fields, no backup safety systems. How do you contain fusion reactions in such small spaces? Dr. Quilon demanded. We don't contain them, replied Power Engineer Brad Johnson. We make friends with them. Fusion wants to happen. We just convince it to happen gently. The aliens spent an hour studying the reactors, trying to understand how they worked without any of the safety systems galactic science considered essential. Your safety margins, General Krexamore observed, are completely outside galactic engineering standards. Our standards are different, Brad admitted. We can't afford massive backup systems and fail-safes. Everything has to work perfectly the first time, so we learn to build things that want to work perfectly. At the transportation center, they watched vehicles that moved through tubes at incredible speeds without any visible propulsion systems. The tubes themselves seemed to pull objects along, like rivers of directed gravity. Gravity manipulation? Ambassador Yelnats asked weakly. Gravity cooperation, corrected transportation engineer Carol White. Gravity is always there, always working. We learned to work with it instead of against it. They climbed aboard a transport pod that accelerated smoothly to 500 kilometers per hour without any sensation of movement. The journey between cities took minutes instead of hours. Your transportation infrastructure, Vexitar noted, covers the entire planet. Every city, every settlement, every research station, Carol confirmed. When you only have 43 million people spread across a whole world, you need efficient ways to bring them together. The manufacturing districts revealed the most shocking discoveries. Factories that produced finished goods from raw materials in single steps. Assembly lines where products emerged fully formed from pools of liquid metal and growing crystals. Traditional manufacturing, explained production manager Steve Davis, wastes enormous amounts of energy breaking things down and building them back up. We learn to convince materials to become what we need directly. Convince materials? Dr. Quilon asked. Everything has natural patterns it wants to follow, Steve replied. We learn to suggest new patterns instead of forcing them. At the agricultural centers, they found farms that produced food in vertical towers reaching toward the sky. Plants grew without soil, fed by nutrient streams that flowed through crystal matrices. Fruits and vegetables matured in weeks instead of months. Accelerated growth systems, explained Agricultural Director Janet Green. We needed to feed a growing population on a finite amount of land, so we learned to help plants reach their potential faster. What about genetic modification? Ambassador Yelnats asked. We don't modify genetics, Janet replied. We modify environment. Give plants exactly what they need when they need it, and they'll exceed every expectation. The medical facilities, revealed healing technologies that bordered on miraculous. Broken bones mended in hours. Diseases disappeared before symptoms appeared. Aging itself seemed slowed to a crawl. How? Dr. Quilon asked simply, staring at regeneration chambers that regrew damaged organs. The body wants to heal itself, Dr. Rogers explained. We learn to remove the obstacles and provide the tools. Most disease is just the body fighting battles with inadequate weapons. Your mortality rates, Ambassador Yelna said, checking. Her datapad are effectively 0 for anyone under 100 years old. Death became unacceptable, Dr. Rogers said quietly. When every person is precious, you learn to fight for every life. In the evening, they gathered in Governor Martinez's office, a simple room with walls that showed real-time views of the ice planet. Cities glowed softly across continents. Ships moved between orbital platforms. Millions of humans lived their lives in comfort and prosperity. Governor, General Crexmore said heavily, we need to understand something. How did isolated colonists develop technology that surpasses galactic civilization? Governor Martinez leaned back in his chair. General, that's the wrong question. What's the right question? The right question is, what did galactic civilization give up when it became comfortable? The aliens looked at each other uncertainly. You have trade routes, Governor Martinez continued. Resource networks, backup systems for your backup systems. When something doesn't work, you import a solution or call for help. That's efficient, Ambassador Yelnas said. It's limiting, Governor Martinez replied. We couldn't import solutions. We couldn't call for help. Every problem had to be solved here by us with what we had, so we learned to solve any problem. But the level of advancement, Dr. Quilon protested, the complexity of your technology. Desperation is the greatest teacher, Chief Engineer Lisa Burke said, joining the conversation. When failure means everyone you love dies, you find ways to succeed that you never imagined possible. Ryan Clark added, we also learned something else. We learned that being told something is impossible just means no one has figured out how to do it yet. The aliens sat in silence, processing the implications. Everything they'd seen suggested that human isolation had been a gift rather than a curse. Cut off from galactic limitations and assumptions, humans had found their own path to advancement. There's something else you should know, Governor Martinez said quietly. We've been monitoring galactic communications for decades. We know about your wars, your trade disputes, your political struggles. You've been watching us? General Crexmore demanded. Learning from you, Governor Martinez corrected, deciding whether galactic civilization was something we wanted to join. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a heavy blanket. These humans hadn't been waiting to be rescued. They'd been deciding whether their rescuers were worthy of their attention. Professor Alex Turner walked through the halls of the New Eden Historical Institute, with the alien delegation following behind. The walls displayed scenes from the colony's past. But these weren't simple pictures. They were three-dimensional. Reconstructions that moved and changed, showing the struggles and triumphs of 2 centuries. Your species, Professor Turner said to Ambassador Yelnas, have a gift for specialization. Zelani excel at exploration and navigation. Thraxians master warfare and security. Kolari perfect diplomacy and trade. The professor stopped at a display showing the early colonists. Men and women worked desperately to build shelters, while strange weather battered their temporary structures. Humans, he continued, have a different gift. We refuse to accept that we can't do something. General Crexmore studied the historical scenes. Your early years look difficult. Terrible, Professor Turner agreed. The first winter killed a third of our people. Diseases we'd never seen. Plants that wouldn't grow. Weather that changed without warning. Every day brought new problems. They moved to the next display showing colonists working together on solutions. Scientists consulted with farmers. Engineers talked to children. Artists worked alongside doctors. In galactic civilization, Dr. Quilon observed, we have specialists for each field. So did we originally, Professor Turner replied, but specialists die when their specialty isn't enough. So we learn to be generalists. Dr. Nina Walsh, the colony's chief sociologist, joined them at the next display. It showed the development of their unique education system. We had to teach our children everything, Dr. Walsh explained. Not just their chosen field, but every field. A farmer had to understand engineering when the irrigation systems failed. An engineer had to understand biology when the materials started degrading. That sounds inefficient, Ambassador Yelna said. It sounds human, Professor Turner replied with a smile. We've never been efficient. We've always been thorough. They entered a workshop where Brad Johnson was teaching young people to build gravity manipulators. But the students weren't just learning engineering. They were also studying the biological systems that inspired the design, the mathematical principles that governed the forces, and the artistic elements that made the devices beautiful. Your educational approach, Dr. Quilon said, violates basic learning theory. You can't master everything. We don't try to master everything, Brad replied, helping a student adjust a gravity field. We try to understand how everything connects to everything else. A teenage girl looked up from her work. Sir, I think I found a way to make this more efficient by copying how tree roots share nutrients. Brad examined her modification. Excellent thinking, Maria. Biology always has lessons for engineering. The aliens watched as the girl's innovation spread through the workshop. Other students began incorporating biological principles into their mechanical designs. Cross-pollination of ideas, Dr. Walsh explained. When everyone knows a little about everything, solutions come from unexpected directions. They visited the colony's original archives, where the first generation had documented their struggles. Video logs showed exhausted colonists working around the clock, failing repeatedly, then trying again with new approaches. Your ancestors, Vextar observed, seemed to try everything. They had to, Professor Turner replied. Standard approaches didn't work. Safe approaches didn't work. The only thing that worked was trying every possible solution until something succeeded. A recording showed an early colonist named Patricia Hill speaking to the camera. Her face was dirty and exhausted, but her eyes burned with determination. Day 847, Patricia's voice said from the speakers. The atmospheric processors failed again. Third time this month. Jenkins says we should call for rescue. I say we figure out how to fix them with grass and rocks if we have to. We're not giving up. Grass and rocks? Dr. Quilon asked. She actually did it, Professor Turner said proudly. Patricia Hill built atmospheric processors using biological filters and mineral catalysts she found in the local environment. They worked better than the originals. They moved through displays showing the colony's gradual evolution. Failed experiments led to new approaches. Desperate solutions became standard procedures. Children grew up thinking that impossible problems were just puzzles waiting to be solved. Your development curve, Ambassador Yelnas noted, shows exponential growth starting about 50 years ago. Dr. Walsh nodded. That's when the third generation reached adulthood. Children who had grown up believing that any problem could be solved if you thought about it hard enough. They weren't limited by conventional thinking. Professor Turner added. They didn't know what was impossible, so they made the impossible work. In the Innovation Center, they met Dr. Tony Rodriguez, who directed the colony's research programs. His office was filled with devices that defied easy categorization. Dr. Rodriguez, General Crexmore said, your research appears to ignore established scientific boundaries. Science doesn't have boundaries, Dr. Rodriguez replied. Only scientists do. We learn to ignore the boundaries. He showed them a project where botanists worked with quantum physicists to develop plants that could grow in vacuum. Anthropologists collaborated with engineers to design cities based on ant colony behavior. Artists partnered with doctors to create healing environments that functioned as works of art. Your interdisciplinary approach, Dr. Quilon said, should create chaos. It creates solutions, Dr. Rodriguez corrected. When you put different minds together on the same problem, they see things that individual specialists miss. They observed a meeting where a fusion engineer consulted with a chef about heat distribution patterns. The chef's knowledge of cooking techniques led to a breakthrough in reactor efficiency. You use culinary science to improve fusion reactors? Ambassador Yelnaz asked in disbelief. Heat is heat, the engineer Robert Kim explained. Chefs understand heat better than most physicists. Why wouldn't we learn from them? In the colony's planning center, they found strategic coordinator Nancy Price, working with a team that included everyone from teenagers to elderly retirees. The group was designing improvements to the transportation system. Everyone contributes, Nancy explained. Age doesn't matter. Background doesn't matter. If you have an idea, we listen. An elderly man raised his hand. What if we made the transport? Tubes breathe like lungs? Expand and contract to move things along? Interesting, Frank, Nancy replied. How would that work? As they watched, Frank's simple suggestion sparked a complex discussion involving biology, engineering, and materials science. Within an hour, the team had designed a revolutionary new propulsion system. That man, Vex Tar, asked quietly, "What's his background?" Frank was a baker, Nancy replied. But he's lived here for 60 years. He's learned to think about everything. As the day ended, the aliens found themselves in the colony's central library, where information flowed through crystalline networks that responded to thought and gesture. Children and adults accessed vast databases with equal ease. Your information systems, Dr. Quilon marveled, allow unprecedented access to knowledge. Knowledge wants to be shared, said Librarian-Chief Amy Foster. When everyone has access to everything, everyone can contribute to anything. Professor Turner gathered the group for final observations. The galaxy has spent thousands of years perfecting specialization. Each species, each individual, becoming expert in narrow fields. It's an efficient system, Ambassador Yelnaz said defensively. For stable environments, Professor Turner agreed. But we didn't have a stable environment. We had chaos, crisis, constant change. Specialization would have killed us. So you became generalists, General Crexmore said. We became human, Professor Turner corrected. We remembered that humans are the species that refuses to accept limitations. Every human child grows up believing they can become anything, do anything, solve any problem. Dr. Walsh added, other species develop cultures that channel individuals into appropriate roles. Human culture encourages every individual to transcend every role. The result, Professor Turner concluded, is a civilization where every person is a potential genius, every problem has multiple solutions, and every limitation is just a challenge waiting to be overcome. The aliens looked around at the impossible library, the impossible colony, the impossible humans who had built something beyond galactic imagination. Your advantage, Vextar said slowly, isn't your technology. No, Professor Turner agreed. Our advantage is that we never learned to stop trying. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of Captain Vexistar's report. The Great Chamber on Nexus Prime, home of galactic government, had never seen such tension. Representatives from dozens of species filled the floating platforms, their voices creating a chaos of worried discussion. Counselor Prime Zethkar of the Thraxians slammed his massive fist on the speaker's podium. "Order! We will have order!" The chamber fell silent as the three-dimensional display activated, showing images from New Eden. Impossible cities, advanced technology, and confident humans filled the space above their heads. The report from the exploration fleet is verified, Zethkar announced. A lost human colony has developed technology that surpasses galactic standards in multiple fields. Fleet Admiral Quolex of the Kolari rose from her platform. The implications are staggering. Their energy efficiency alone could revolutionize our infrastructure. Their medical technology, added Science Director Morgan of the Zalani, shows healing capabilities we consider theoretically impossible. Representative Klexvar of the minor Synthari species called out from the upper platforms. What about military applications? If they can manipulate gravity and space itself... The chamber erupted in concerned voices. For thousands of years, galactic civilization had maintained balance through shared technology and mutual dependence. No single species or world possessed overwhelming advantages. The discovery of New Eden threatened that balance. "Silence," Zethkar roared. "Admiral Quolex, what is the immediate security assessment?" Quolex activated her data display. "Their defensive capabilities are unknown but likely significant. Their transportation technology suggests they could move fleets across galactic distances in unprecedented time." "Are they a threat?" demanded War Counselor Brexton of the Kolari. "Unknown," Quolex replied, "but their capabilities suggest they could become one if they chose to." On the human world, Administrator Chris Foster sat in his office reviewing the same intelligence reports the aliens were discussing. The colony's monitoring systems had been tracking galactic communications since the alien fleet arrived. "They're scared," reported Communications Director Laura White, studying the intercepted council session. "The technology gap is larger than we expected." Economic planner Helen Gray joined them, carrying data tablets filled with economic projections. "If we integrate with galactic markets, we could destabilize their entire economic system. Our manufacturing efficiency would make most galactic industries obsolete." "Is that necessarily bad?" Chris asked. "For them, yes," Helen replied. "Entire civilizations depend on current trade patterns. If we offer superior alternatives, we crash their economies and cause political chaos," Laura finished. Back on Nexus Prime, the council session had devolved into factional arguments. The Thraxians wanted immediate military action to assess human capabilities. The Kolari pushed for diplomatic integration to gain access to human technology. The Zalani advocated for careful study and gradual contact. "We must consider historical precedent," declared elder philosopher Wexnall of the Cerebi. "When one species achieves significant technological advantage, galactic stability suffers." "The hegemony wars," murmured several representatives, referencing the ancient conflicts that had shaped current galactic law. Counselor Prime Zethkar called for specific reports. "Admiral Quolex, what would happen if the humans chose to expand beyond their system?" With their transportation technology, they could establish colonies anywhere in the galaxy within months. Their self-sufficiency means they wouldn't need our trade routes or supply lines. Economic impact? Zethkar asked Economic Minister Palnex. Catastrophic potential, Palnex replied grimly. Their manufacturing methods could produce goods at costs that would make our industries uncompetitive. Unemployment and economic collapse could follow. Military assessment if they chose aggression? Defense Coordinator Vakrul's report sent chills through the chamber. Their space manipulation technology suggests weapons capabilities beyond our countermeasures. A single human ship with gravity manipulation could disable entire fleets. On New Eden, Governor Martinez met with his senior advisors in the Situation Room. Holographic displays showed the council session in real time, along with military preparations, beginning across the galaxy. 3 fleets are being positioned near our system, reported Defense Coordinator Ryan Clark. Thraxian heavy cruisers, Kalari diplomatic vessels with military escorts, and a Zalani science flotilla. They're hedging their bets, observed Chief Engineer Lisa Burke. Diplomacy, force, and study, all at once. What are our options? Governor Martinez asked. Strategic Advisor Julie Stevens outlined the possibilities. We could withdraw deeper, into unknown space. Our ships are faster than theirs. We could disappear again. And leave them wondering what we're planning, Ryan added. That would make them more paranoid, not less. We could demonstrate our defensive capabilities, suggested Lisa. Show them that aggression would be futile. That might provoke exactly the response we want to avoid, Julie countered. Tech specialist Mike Thompson brought up the long-term projections. If we engage with galactic civilization, we change everything. Their trade networks, their power structures, their entire way of life. Change isn't necessarily bad, Governor Martinez said. For us, no, Mike agreed. But for them, it could mean the collapse of everything they've built. The Galactic Council session continued through the night. Faction after faction presented arguments for different approaches to the human situation. We must demand full disclosure of their technology, insisted Scientific Coordinator Thexmar. Galactic law requires sharing of significant discoveries. Galactic law applies to galactic citizens, countered Legal Advisor Nexrian. These humans have been isolated for 2 centuries. They never agreed to our treaties. Then we make them agree, growled General Crexmore, who had returned from New Eden more disturbed than impressed. One way or another. High Admiral Mortaz stood to address the assembly. I propose immediate deployment of a protection fleet to the human system. For their safety, of course. The euphemism fooled no one. Protection fleets were how the galaxy handled potential threats. Ambassador Yelnas, who had also returned from New Eden, rose to speak. Honored counselors, I urge caution. These humans are not primitives to be managed. They are an advanced civilization, choosing how to engage with us. All the more reason to ensure that engagement favors galactic security, Mortaz replied. The vote was close, but the protection fleet was approved. 50 ships from the 3 major powers would take positions around the human system, ostensibly to facilitate peaceful contact. On New Eden, the decision was received with grim understanding. They're going to try to force integration, Ryan Clark reported. Standard galactic procedure for managing potential threats. How long until the fleet arrives? Governor Martinez asked. 2 weeks given their fastest ships, Mike Thompson calculated. Time enough to prepare our response, the governor said calmly. What kind of response? Julie Stevens asked. Governor Martinez looked out at his thriving world, at the civilization his people had built through determination and innovation, the kind that shows them we're not victims to be managed or threats to be contained. We're partners to be respected. And if they don't want partners, Ryan asked, then we remind them that humans have never accepted being told what we can't do, the governor replied, including being told we can't disappear back into the dark if we choose to. The implications hung heavy in the air. For the first time in galactic history, a civilization existed that could choose whether to engage with the galaxy or ignore it entirely. The balance of power that had maintained peace for millennia was about to be tested by a species that had learned to transcend limitations through 2 centuries of isolation and innovation. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest discovery wasn't any single technology. It was the rediscovery of what it meant to be truly free. The galactic fleet arrived at New Eden like a metal storm. 50 warships from 3 species dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, their weapons powered down but clearly visible. High Admiral Mortaz commanded from the Bius, a massive Thraxian dreadnought, Inevitable Victory, flanked by Kalari diplomatic cruisers and Zalani science vessels. This is High Admiral Mortaz of the Galactic Protection Fleet, came the transmission to New Eden. We have arrived to facilitate peaceful integration and ensure regional security. On the planet's surface, Colony President Dan Mitchell stood in the command center watching the fleet deployment. He had been elected to lead New Eden through this historic moment, and the weight of that responsibility showed in his steady expression. 50 ships, observed Strategic Advisor Julie Stevens, studying the tactical displays. They're not taking any chances. Communications Director Laura White looked up from her console. Sir, we're receiving requests for immediate meetings, technology transfers, and compliance with galactic integration protocols. Compliance, Dan repeated with a slight smile. Interesting choice of words. Defense Coordinator Ryan Clark monitored the fleet's positions. They're establishing a blockade pattern. Nothing gets in or out without their permission. Tech specialist Mike Thompson was analyzing the alien ships with scanners far more advanced than anything the galaxy possessed. Their weapons are powerful, but their shield technology is at least 30 years behind ours. Propulsion systems are adequate but inefficient. Mike, Dan said quietly, please don't let them know we're scanning them. Sir, they probably can't detect our scanning methods. Our technology operates on principles they haven't discovered yet. Strategic Advisor Julie Stevens called up long-range sensor data. There are more ships coming. These 50 are just the advance force. I'm detecting at least 200 additional vessels moving toward this system. Trade Representative Kevin Bell joined the meeting, carrying economic analyses. Sir, they're also positioning trade enforcement vessels at major shipping lanes. They're cutting us off from any potential independent contact with other species. Dan Mitchell had been preparing for this moment since taking office. The humans of New Eden had spent decades watching galactic politics, learning how the galaxy dealt with potential threats or valuable resources. The pattern was always the same. Isolation, assessment, integration, and control. Laura, send a message to Admiral Mortaz, Dan ordered. Invite him to the surface for discussions. Sir, Ryan warned, that could be seen as surrender. Or confidence, Dan replied. Let's see which they choose to believe. Admiral Mortaz accepted the invitation, but insisted on bringing a full security detail. His shuttle landed at the same platform where Captain Vex Tar had first arrived. But this time the atmosphere was tense rather than welcoming. Governor Martinez greeted the Admiral with perfect diplomatic courtesy. Admiral Mortaz, welcome to New Eden. We're honored by your visit. The massive Thraxian Admiral studied the human settlement with calculating eyes. Governor Martinez, I trust you understand the significance of our arrival. Completely, Martinez replied. You're here to determine whether we're a threat or an asset to galactic security. Mortaz's surprise was barely concealed. Lost colonies weren't supposed to understand galactic politics so clearly. We're here to facilitate your integration into galactic civilization, the Admiral said carefully. Integration, President Mitchell repeated, stepping forward. I'm Dan Mitchell, elected President of New Eden. Perhaps we should discuss what integration means. They moved to the same conference room where earlier meetings had taken place. This time, however, the humans had prepared different materials. The walls displayed star charts showing galactic trade routes, political boundaries, and military positions. Impressive intelligence gathering, Admiral Mortaz noted. We've been watching you for 60 years, President Mitchell said matter-of-factly. We know how the galaxy works. Ambassador Yelnas, who had accompanied the Admiral, leaned forward. President Mitchell, galactic law requires certain protocols for advanced civilizations. Technology sharing, trade agreements, military cooperation. Whose law? Interrupted Julie Stevens. We never agreed to galactic law. We've been independent for 2 centuries. Independence is a luxury the galaxy can't afford, Admiral Mortaz stated firmly. Advanced technology in unregulated hands poses risks to billions of beings. Trade Representative Kevin Bell activated a holographic display. Admiral, let's discuss this openly. You're not here to protect the galaxy from us. You're here to protect galactic power structures from us. The display showed economic projections demonstrating how human technology could disrupt existing trade networks and political alliances. Our manufacturing efficiency, Kevin continued, could make most galactic industries obsolete. Our medical technology could extend lifespans across the galaxy. Our energy systems could power civilizations at a fraction of current costs. And that's a problem? Governor Martinez asked innocently. For the current order, yes, Admiral Mortaz admitted. Stability requires managed change. Managed by whom? President Mitchell asked. The question hung in the air like a challenge. For thousands of years, the 3 major species had managed galactic development, ensuring that no single group gained overwhelming advantages. Tech specialist Mike Thompson entered the room carrying a data pad. Sir, I thought you should know. We've been tracking the approaching fleets, 237 ships now representing every major galactic power. An invasion force? Governor Martinez asked. A management force, Admiral Mortaz corrected, for everyone's protection. Including ours? Julie Stevens asked skeptically. Communications Director Laura White received an urgent message and whispered to President Mitchell. His expression hardened as he listened. Admiral, President Mitchell said, we've just intercepted communications between your fleets. There's been discussion of protective custody for our leadership and secure facilities for our technology. Ambassador. Yelnas looked genuinely shocked. President Mitchell, I wasn't aware of such discussions. Because you represent diplomatic interests, Admiral Mortaz said bluntly. I represent security interests. This technology cannot remain unregulated. The humans exchanged glances. They had prepared for this moment, hoping it wouldn't come but ready if it did. Admiral, President Mitchell said calmly, we have a choice to offer you. You're in no position to offer choices, Mortaz replied. Actually, we are, Governor Martinez said. Mike, show them the demonstration. Mike Thompson activated his tablet. In space above New Eden, something extraordinary happened. The human orbital platforms, which had appeared to be simple manufacturing facilities, suddenly revealed their true nature. The platforms unfolded like flowering crystals, revealing technology that dwarfed anything in the galactic fleet. Energy. Signatures spiked to incredible levels. Space itself seemed to bend around the human installations. What are those? Admiral Mortaz demanded. Defensive platforms, Ryan Clark said simply. We learned long ago that sometimes neighbors aren't friendly. You're threatening a galactic fleet? The Admiral asked in disbelief. We're demonstrating capability, President Mitchell corrected. Admiral, your ships are powerful, but our technology operates on principles your science hasn't discovered. We could disable your entire fleet without harming a single crew member. Or, Julie Stevens added, we could simply leave. Leave? Ambassador Yelnas asked. Tech specialist Mike activated. Another display, showing ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Vessels that seemed to fold space around themselves, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We've been building for 60 years, Governor Martinez explained. Not just cities and technology, but ships. Ships that can go places your fastest vessels can't follow. We could disappear back into the dark, President Mitchell said. Find another system. Build another world. Leave you wondering what we're planning and where we might appear next. The threat was subtle, but devastating. An advanced human civilization, loose in the galaxy with superior technology and unknown intentions, would terrify galactic leadership. Far more than one contained on a single world. Or, President Mitchell continued, we can be partners, equals sharing knowledge and working together for mutual benefit. Admiral Mortaz studied the impossible human technology, calculating odds. That kept getting worse. Partners have responsibilities. Partners have choices, President Mitchell replied. We choose to engage with galactic civilization, but as equals, not subjects. The Galactic Council will never accept that, the Admiral warned. Then the Galactic Council will have to explain to their people why they chose conflict over cooperation, Julie Stevens said. What exactly are you proposing? Ambassador Yelnas asked. President Mitchell smiled. A new model for galactic civilization, one based on partnership rather than control. We have much to offer, but we offer it freely, not under compulsion. And if the galaxy refuses? Admiral Mortaz asked. Then we'll wish you well and disappear into the dark, Governor Martinez said simply. But we think the galaxy is smarter than that. The choice was laid out clearly. Accept humanity as equals, or watch them vanish again, this time with technology that could reshape the balance of galactic power from the shadows. 6 months later, the New Eden Accords were signed in a ceremony unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The document wasn't created in the halls of galactic power on Nexus Prime, but in the central plaza of New Eden, under the open sky of the human world. Ambassador Grace Parker stood at the ceremonial podium, representing humanity to the assembled galactic dignitaries. Her appointment had shocked the diplomatic corps. Not because she lacked qualifications, but because she had refused to follow traditional protocols. Instead of traveling to established galactic centers for negotiations, she had invited the galaxy to come to her. Today, Ambassador Parker announced, we establish a new model for galactic cooperation, not integration through absorption, but partnership through mutual respect. The crowd included representatives from every major galactic power, but also thousands of humans who had voted on every aspect of the Accords. Direct democracy had allowed the entire colony to participate in shaping their relationship with the galaxy. Trade Representative Kevin Bell presented the economic agreements. Instead of joining existing trade networks, humanity had proposed something revolutionary: shared technology development with open-source principles. "We offer our manufacturing techniques," Kevin announced, "not as proprietary secrets, but as tools for galactic prosperity. In return, we ask for cultural exchange, raw materials, and partnership in exploration." The implications were staggering. Human efficiency could transform galactic industry, but instead of creating economic chaos, the gradual sharing of techniques would allow existing systems to adapt and improve. Counselor Prime Zethkar, who had traveled from Nexus Prime for the signing, still seemed uncertain about the arrangement. "These terms are unprecedented. Traditionally, advanced civilizations join the galactic framework." "And traditionally," interrupted President Mitchell, "advanced civilizations lose their independence in the process. We propose a different path." Dr. Tony Rodriguez and Research Director Amy Foster presented the Scientific Cooperation Protocols. Instead of mandatory technology sharing, they had created voluntary research partnerships. "We invite galactic scientists to work with us," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "Not to extract our knowledge, but to combine our approaches with yours. Innovation happens at the intersection of different ways of thinking." The assembled alien scientists studied the proposed research facilities. Humans offered to build joint laboratories on multiple worlds, staffed by mixed teams working on problems too complex for any single species. "Your fusion technology alone," said Dr. Quilon, "could revolutionize galactic energy production." "Not our fusion technology," corrected Dr. Foster. "Our approach to fusion will teach the principles, but each species will adapt them to their own needs and capabilities." The military agreements represented the most delicate negotiations. General Crexmore had demanded assurances about human defensive capabilities, while the humans had insisted on maintaining their independence. Defense Coordinator Ryan Clark presented the compromise. "We establish mutual defense agreements based on shared threats, not shared command structures. When the galaxy faces dangers that require our unique capabilities, we'll respond. But we remain sovereign." "And if human interests conflict with galactic interests?" Admiral Mortaz asked. "Then we discuss it like adults," Ryan replied simply. "Partnership means working through disagreements, not avoiding them." The cultural exchange programs drew the most enthusiasm from both sides. Anthropologist Dr. Nina Walsh had worked with galactic cultural experts to design programs that would enrich both human and alien civilizations. "We offer our art, our music, our literature," Dr. Walsh announced, "not as curiosities, but as alternative ways of understanding existence. In return, we ask to learn from your cultures, your histories, your unique perspectives." Young people from across the galaxy had already applied for exchange programs to New Eden. The idea of studying in a civilization that encouraged unlimited thinking attracted the most innovative minds from every species. Professor Alex Turner presented the Educational Cooperation Agreements. "We propose joint universities, shared curricula, and exchange programs that benefit everyone. Human students need to understand the galaxy they're joining. Galactic students need to understand human approaches to problem solving. Your educational methods admitted Education Coordinator Felrex of the Cerebi, produce results we considered impossible. Our children could benefit greatly from exposure to human teaching techniques. The signing ceremony began with representatives from dozens of species adding their marks to the accords. Each signature represented not just governmental approval, but a commitment to try something unprecedented in galactic history. Captain Vextar, whose discovery had started everything, spoke on behalf of the exploration services. These accords represent more than political agreements. They represent evolution in how civilizations can relate to each other. As the formal ceremonies concluded, the real celebration began. Human and alien children played together in the plaza while their parents discussed the future. Musicians from multiple species created spontaneous concerts blending different musical traditions. Trade Representative Kevin Bell found himself surrounded by economic ministers wanting to understand human manufacturing principles. Instead of demanding secret formulas, they were asking to send students and observers. "This is how it should work," Kevin told President Mitchell. "Knowledge shared freely, everyone benefiting, everyone contributing something unique. In the research centers, Dr. Rodriguez showed Thraxian engineers how human biological integration techniques could strengthen their massive construction projects. The Thraxians, in return, shared metallurgy secrets that could improve human manufacturing." Collaboration instead of competition, Dr. Rodriguez observed. The galaxy could have been doing this for millennia. Ambassador Grace Parker met with her counterparts from the major powers, establishing the ongoing diplomatic protocols that would govern human galactic relations. "The key," she explained to Ambassador Yelnus, "is that we're joining the galaxy as ourselves, not as what you want us to become." "That's a difficult concept for galactic leadership," Yelnus admitted. "We're used to managing integration." "And we're used to managing ourselves," Grace replied with a smile. "We'll figure out how to work together." As evening fell on New Eden, President Mitchell stood with Governor Martinez watching the mixed crowds celebrating in the plaza below. "Think it will work?" Martinez asked. "It has to," Mitchell replied, "because the alternative is worse for everyone." The alternative had been clear throughout the negotiations. Humanity could have vanished back into the dark, leaving the galaxy to wonder what they were planning. Or worse, the galaxy could have tried to force integration, leading to conflict that would devastate both sides. "We've given them a third option," Martinez observed. "Growth through partnership." Tech specialist Mike Thompson joined them on the observation deck. "Sir, we're receiving applications for joint research projects from every major university in the galaxy. Also, about 300 requests for cultural exchange programs. Any problems?" President Mitchell asked. "Just logistics," Mike replied. "We might need to build bigger landing platforms." Communications Director Laura White brought the latest reports from across human space. "Sir, the other colonies want to join the accords. 17 settlements in distant systems are asking to participate in the galactic exchange programs." The revelation that New Eden wasn't humanity's only advanced colony had shocked galactic intelligence services. Humans had been spreading quietly through unexplored regions for decades, each settlement pushing the boundaries of what was possible. "Let them know they're welcome," President Mitchell said, "but remind them that joining galactic civilization means accepting galactic responsibilities." "And if they don't want the responsibilities?" Laura asked. "Then they stay independent," the president replied. "That's their choice to make." Strategic advisor Julie Stevens arrived with the long-term projections. Sir, if these agreements work, as planned, we're looking at fundamental changes in galactic civilization within 50 years. What kind of changes? Governor Martinez asked. More innovation, faster development, greater cooperation between species, Julie replied, but also more complexity, more challenges and more opportunities for misunderstanding. Growing pains, President Mitchell said. Every civilization goes through them. As the celebration continued below, the humans who had spent 2 centuries learning to exceed their limitations prepared to teach the galaxy the same lesson, not through force or manipulation, but through example and partnership. The galaxy would learn that humanity's greatest gift wasn't their technology or their innovation. It was their absolute refusal to accept that anything was impossible when intelligent beings worked together toward common goals. In the end, the lost colony had not been found by the galaxy. The galaxy had been found by humanity and introduced to possibilities they had never imagined. The future stretched ahead like an uncharted star map, full of discoveries waiting to be made by partners who had learned that the only real limitation was the willingness to keep trying. The human experiment in freedom had become a galactic experiment in cooperation, and the results would reshape the cosmos for generations to come.